All right, everybody, welcome to a brand new video. This is the last cup of the season for me. This is the August Mirror Cup, and for Tampa Bay, we chose the regionals format. I think the regionals format was a favorite amongst a lot of the community because the first time we played in it, it was invitation only based on your performance throughout the previous cups, and just the meta is so wide open. You get to use a lot of really strong picks, a lot of the picks that are in the top 10, top 15, and top 25 for PvPoke Simulator for overall Pokemon. I had a lot of fun at this cup. I didn't perform quite as well as I would like to, but that's just the competitive side of me. It was the end of the season, and I think as we wind down and look back on season 1, my biggest focus has been learning. I definitely wanted to learn more and to get to that next level, and I think a lot of studying and a lot of looking at matchups in an interesting way kind of helps you to get to that next tier, which is what I hope to do in season 2. Overall, this is a very exciting video. I have some really cool things to show you at the end. Tampa has its first ace trainer, and we are so excited for my friend. You're going to find out more when we get to the end of the video, so stay tuned. Going right into round 1 here, I wanted to talk about team compositions. So my first opponent was Gartos. He is a prominent member of the Tampa Bay PvP community. He's running a team that consists of Venusaur, Medicham, Azumarill, Skarmory, Lantern, and Sableye. So this is a team you probably saw a lot in regionals the first time around. This is an extremely balanced team. I just want to go over the different coverages that this team offers. So with Venusaur, obviously you have a grass and poison type, with access to Frenzy Plant and Sludge Bomb being the two most common moves. Then you go on to Medicham, and Medicham is the undisputed king of the fighting types. It does have Counter as the fast move, Power Up Punch, and Ice Punch. Going to Azumarill, you do have Bubble as the standard fast move, and then you have the option of either running Play Rough Ice Beam or Play Rough Ice Beam, Hydro Pump, however you want to combine that move set, which in general gives you a lot of coverage. And Azumarill is so extremely tanky, it fares well against anything in the meta. Same can be said for Medicham. And the next Pokemon as well, which is Skarmory. So Skarmory is a steel flying type. Its primary fast move is Air Slash. It does come with Sky Attack, and you can add the Flash Cannon on there as well to give you some additional coverage towards the walls that Skarmory is bound to run into. Things like Bastiodon, Probopass, Melmetal, things like that. Going on to Lantern there. Lantern can either run Water Gun or Charge Beam. So Water Gun is ideal for chip damage. If you're trying to get through those walls that we talked about just a moment ago, the Water Gun can really wear them down. It also does good neutral damage against a lot of the meta. However, with Charge Beam, you actually get your charge moves faster. So if you're just trying to spam the Thunderbolt, spam the Hydro Pumps, whatever you want to do, the Charge Beam is probably better for that. But for the chip damage, the Lantern Water Gun is key. Going into Sableye here, we know that Sableye is going to carry Shadow Claw, which is the fastest ghost type charge move. It gets you the most energy the quickest, and it does carry Shadow Sneak, Foul Play, and Power Gem to help deal with the flying type attackers. So just looking across this team, there's a lot of coverage options here. It's an extremely hard team to approach, and I wanted to put a special spotlight on it because it's also the team used by the champion of this tournament, as you'll see at the end. So moving on down there to my team, I'm going to have Skarmory, Bronzong, Swampert, Azumarill, Altaria, and Medicham. Now, if you take just a moment, just take a look at this team. I'm not sure why I decided to roll with this composition because it has one glaring weakness to one of the top meta picks. I'll give you just a second. Let me know if you find out what it is. So looking at my team, I have no strong counter to Azumarill. Sure, I can bring in Skarmory, and that's essentially a mirror match depending on charge move priority, if the shields are down, etc., etc. I can bring in Swampert with Earthquake, might do some good damage, but Swampert is so squishy. Altaria is going to suffer from the Ice Beams. We know Medicham is not going to do well. And then with Bronzong, all we need is 1 or 2 Play Roughs, and we are out of the game. And then I have just Azumarill as my only Azumarill counter, if you will. So my mistake here with the team comp, I think I should have swapped out Altaria for something that could counter Azumarill, something like Lantern or Venusaur or Victory Bell, something like that. And that does show up a lot in these matches, as you will see. So my Skarmory is carrying Air Slash, Sky Attack, and Flash Cannon. My Bronzong has Confusion. I'm also running Bulldoze and Psyshock. For Swampert, I have Mudshot and the Community Day move Hydro Cannon with Earthquake as the second charge move. My Azumarill is running Bubble, Play Rough, and Ice Beam. I think that gives it the most flexibility, and with the other components of my team, I felt comfortable going up against the walls. I know a lot of players will run Hydro Pump on Azumarill just so it can blast through those walls if Medicham is taken down. My Altaria is carrying Dragon Breath, Sky Attack, and Dragon Pulse, which I think is pretty standard. I have seen some Dazzling Gleam, and that's a nice surprise. It just takes a little more energy to get to that charge move. And then Medicham with the traditional moveset of Counter, Power Up Punch, and Ice Punch. Going into round 1 here against Gartos, I open Azumarill, he opens Sableye. This is a favorable matchup for me because the Play Rough is a Fairy type attack and it will do good damage against the Dark type and Ghost type of Sableye. He knows that, so he switches out. He's going to bring in his Azumarill, and just like I mentioned in Team Comp, I don't have a strong counter for Azumarill, so I switch into Swampert here. I'm going to try to go for the Earthquake, but he's just too quick with the bubbles. He already had all that charge energy from when I stayed in with my Azumarill. So I'm going to go here for the Earthquake, and he decides to shield. He knows that I don't have a strong counter, so he's going to hold on to this Azumarill. I get to one more Earthquake, and I'm hoping to take that second shield. However, he lets it through. So Azumarill's pretty weak, and he is going to burn his energy here. This might have been a mistake on his part. I think he could have held on to that energy a little bit longer. I'm going to bring in my Azumarill, and I know he's out of energy, so I farm up 3 bubbles there, and then I go for an Ice Beam. We take down that Azumarill, and out comes Lantern. Lantern is a great counter for Azumarill. It does carry that Thunderbolt, and its water typing resists a lot of Azumarill's fast moves like the Bubble. So I'm going to shield this Thunderbolt knowing that it's coming in. My option in the back is Skarmory, so I'm in pretty big trouble here. I need to take down this Lantern. I go for the shield bait here with the Ice Beam, and he decides to take it. I'm going to go for a Play Rough to finish it, but I don't quite get there. In comes Skarmory, and he probably knows he's won this match by now. I'm going to get off this Sky Attack here. Let's see if it's enough. We don't take down the Lantern. It survives and gets off the Thunderbolt, and that is just about GG's for us. I'm very weak, trying to get to another Sky Attack, but Sableye is healthy, and he takes us down with a Shadow Claw. Going to this round, I open Medicham, he opens Lantern. Medicham is a decent counter to the Lantern just because of its bulk, and Lantern's ability to get to that Thunderbolt is a little bit slow, so I have time to get in some power punches. He switches to Sableye, I go with the Azumarill. I have him switch locked in a favorable position, but just look at this raw DPS that Sableye outputs. I mean, my Azumarill is a strong counter, but it's already at half health. I'm going to fire off the Ice Beam here for a shield bait, and he takes it. I am going to shield my Azumarill here, and this match is a lot closer than I thought it would be. I over-farm here, and I get a little too greedy. He's going to fire for Foul Play, and we are able to survive. I'm going to go here for the Play Rough to take down the Sableye, and he lets it through. So he's going to save that one shield. He brings out Azumarill, and again, I get caught. I don't have a strong Azumarill counter. I'm able to fire off this Play Rough here and do some good damage, and I switch into Swampert. I save my Azumarill there as a sacrificial swap just in case I want to bring it in later to absorb a charge move, and let's see if it happens for me. I do fire off the Hydro Cannon. This time I'm just going for the Hydro Cannon spam. I just want to get as much damage in on this Azumarill as possible. I do end up taking that second shield, which is great for me. He's going to fire for Play Rough. Swampert barely survives. I'm able to get to one more Hydro Cannon. I get a couple of mud shots in there to try to get him a little bit lower in health, and we're able to KO with the Hydro Cannon. In comes Lantern. I'm going to go Medicham here and fire off this Power Up Punch. I'm trying to gauge how many water guns he has left, so I make the fast switch into Azumarill, hoping to catch a Thunderbolt, but he just water guns us down, and this Thunderbolt is going to do a massive amount of damage against, oh, it's actually Hydro Pump, and Hydro Pump will definitely take down Medicham. GG's Gartos, that was round 1. Going to round 2, I'm facing off against Harris Leader. Harris Leader is going to bring Tropius, Skarmory, Swampert, Medicham, Noctowl, and Lantern. So this is an interesting team comp. He brought 3 flyers. He also has Swampert to handle the walls. Medicham is a great generalist, and Lantern handles flyers as well. So for this particular matchup, I would feel a lot more comfortable if I had something like a Probopass or a Bastiodon. I think those are really good counters. With Tropius, the walls get a little interesting because he might be carrying Air Slash or he might be carrying Razor Leaf. And in these matches, you just don't know until you know. So let's see how this game goes. Going into round 1 against Harris Leader, we both open Medicham. We are in the Medicham mirror match. It's not quite as exciting as the Skarmory mirror match. Definitely sarcasm. I'm going to go for the Power Punch here. And he returns fire with a power up punch of his own. I'm going to bring in Bronzong here. So I'm learning from the Boulder Cup that Bronzong is a good counter for Medicham. You just cannot allow that Medicham to get rolling with the power up punches. So if Medicham's able to get a couple of power up punches in, it's just too powerful, and that fighting type attack counter is going to hurt the steel type more than it resists with the psychic subtyping. So I'm going to fire up another Psyshock here against Skarmory to try to take it down. He's going to get another charge move off here. I'm going to let it through. So if we do survive that Sky Attack, I get a couple more confusions because I realized those Air Slashes weren't doing much damage at all. And I'm going to fire up this Psyshock, and we almost take down Skarmory. I actually had another Psyshock loaded, but I went for confusion instead, which was a mistake on my part. He's going to bring in, or I'm going to bring in a Azumarill, and he's going to fire off a Sky Attack. Skarmory is out of the way, and in comes Lantern, another counter that we saw in the previous match against Gartos. He's actually going to bring in his Medicham to face off against my Medicham. The key here is that I have 2 shields, so I need to be careful about how I use these. I'm going to fire off this Ice Punch here to try to catch him, and he does not take the bait. He's actually going to protect his Medicham. And I know I need to get this Medicham out of the way, but it's more important for me to conserve my shields because I cannot allow that Thunderbolt to hit my Azumarill. So I'm going to fire off this Ice Beam here to take down his Medicham. In comes Lantern, just like we talked about. Here comes the Thunderbolt. I'm going to shield that, and this match is coming close. I'm going to fire off this Play Rough here, and I think I might be able to get to another 2 possibly, and I need at least 2 to beat him. I'm going to shield this next Thunderbolt, and the timing is not lining up. I am very worried here. A few more bubbles because I'm trying to chip him down, and I know he needs a few more Water Guns to get to his next charge move, so I fire off the Play Rough here, and we barely edge that Lantern as the timer runs out. Going into round 2, I'm going to open Swampert. He opens Medicham. If you've been playing a lot of Boulder, you see that matchup a lot. I'm actually going to make a quick swap into Azumarill and fire up this Play Rough against the Lantern. So he shields the first Play Rough. He's definitely going to hang on to this Lantern, invest in it, and try to keep it healthy. I am going to shield my Azumarill as well. Now, this is something that I haven't heard a lot of battlers talk about, but I think there's one key matchup in every battle that is a pivot point for the entire match. So it might be lining up the Azumarill with the Lantern, it might be lining up the Medicham with the Skarmory. There's one key fight that really is going to determine the matchup based on your team composition. And for us, I think this is ours. So I'm going to fire off a few more bubbles here, and I'm trying to get to this Play Rough, and we do. I take down that Lantern. Now with Lantern out of the way, I'm feeling like this is a much more favorable game for me. I'm going to bring in Bronzong here, and he brings in Medicham. This Medicham is not ramped up, so this Bronzong is going to do really good work against it. He's got no shields as well, so these Psyshocks are going to come right through. Psyshock does a good amount of damage. Here comes Power Up Punch number 2, and I know Bronzong can take this. I'm going to fire off a couple more confusions, and he actually takes us down. I should have gone for 1 confusion and 1 Psyshock, but I bring in a Azumarill, and the bubble takes down that Medicham. In comes Skarmory. So with the shields down, Swampert is just such a spammy beast. We encounter a little bit of lag here, but with both lagging, so we decide to continue the match. But back to the spammy beast, these Hydro Cannons are going to fly so fast that this Skarmory maybe will get 1 Sky Attack, but it's not enough to take me down, and I know I've got this match in the bag. Going into the next game, I'm facing off against my friend Matt. So Matt has a bit of a jungle hangover, as I said. He's got Victory Bell and Wigglytuff, which is really fun, really interesting. I like the fairy types in regionals because they counter the psychics, they counter the darks, and they counter the ghosts. It's really tough to take down a fairy type if you're not carrying a poison type of your own. He also has that Victory Bell with, I assume, Razor Leaf, Acid Spray, and possibly Leaf Blade or Sludge Bomb. Azumarill, Skarmory, Probopass is pretty standard. I think the question with Probopass is whether or not you're running Rock Slide or Magnet Bomb. The Thunderbolt seems like it's a pretty standard move. And of course it's Medicham, which has one more CP than mine. So that's pretty cool. So going into this round, let's see what happens. To kick off this first game, I'm going to open Bronzong. He opens Skarmory. So Bronzong is not a hard counter for Skarmory. However, it will do really good damage against it. I do have to watch out for those flash cannons. However, the sky attacks and the air slashes are not going to hurt too bad. So I'm going to choose not to shield here, and a sky attack comes through. I'm going to make a fast swap into Swampert, and he switches into Medicham. Medicham actually wins this matchup in the 2 shields scenario because that power up punch just ramps up so quickly. Swampert cannot take the heat. I'm actually going to fire off another Hydro Cannon here in return of his power up punch. We get that off, and then we're trying to get to another one, and we do. It's just an inch of our life. He was trying to farm us down, but it worked out well for us. He's going to burn his second shield, and I have 2 shields, Bronzong and a Azumarill, so I'm feeling pretty confident. I decide to show my Azumarill here. He's going to fire up the power up punch, and it barely tickles. He's going to switch into Skarmory here, and I try to go for the switch to absorb the sky attack because he is switch locked, and I actually end up tanking it. In comes my Bronzong. I'm going to try to get to this Psyshock here to finish off the Skarmory, and we do. In comes Azumarill. So I'm going to try to use a Bulldoze here. I'm not sure. I haven't really looked at the simulations to decide what's the best move to use here, but I just go for Bulldoze. And then I think I can sneak in one more Psyshock. He actually ends up burning his energy here, which is probably a mistake, but he wanted to make sure I did not get to another charge attack. So I have an Azumarill with 2 shields here against his weakened Azumarill. I'm feeling pretty confident because I know the bubbles don't do much damage. One Play Rough takes down his Azumarill. I am going to shield its attack just to play it super safe, and then fire off an Ice Beam to finish off Medicham. Going into round 2 against Matt, I open Bronzong again. He opens Victory Bell. So this is essentially like the Bronzong and Venusaur matchup. Those confusions really hurt. He bails out immediately into Medicham, and I go with my Azumarill. I'm feeling pretty comfortable here. He is switch locked. I do farm up a couple of bubbles, and I know I can take the second power up punch. No big deal. I'm going to fire up this Ice Beam to try to get a shield bait, and he does not take it. So I'm going to try to get to another Ice Beam here because I know I'm within range of KOing his Medicham. I'm going to absorb that third power-up punch as well, and I actually just go for bubbles here. He did expend his energy, so I wasn't too worried, and now I have an Ice Beam loaded for this Victory Bell. He does not block that either, and I'm going to come in with the Confusion and really hurt that Victory Bell. In comes Probopass. Now, I did scrim this match a little bit, and I know that the Bulldoze is the way to go against Probopass. It does a huge amount of damage if you can land it. And because Probopass doesn't have any ground type attacks, Bronzong is pretty safe here. He's actually going to get to another charge move. I know that if I can take down this Probopass, I can win the match. So I'm going to go for a shield bait here with the Psyshock, and he decides to shield. All I need is one more Bulldoze. I have my switch tray open just in case, and I fire off this Bulldoze to take down Probopass, and we do. In comes Victory Bell, and one Confusion erases that one. GG's, Matt. Going to the next round, I'm facing off against Dark Ninja Shark. Now, I only actually have one recording of our matches. I did win this match 2-0, but it's always a pleasure to face off against Dark Ninja Shark. Fierce competitor. She's going to bring in Venusaur, Probopass, Togekiss, Skarmory, Swampert, and Lucario. So I love the Lucario pick here. Lucario actually has a higher attack stat than Medicham, so it does take down the walls even faster, and its Steel type helps it to resist some of the typical counters to the fighting types like the Psychics. Swampert, of course, you're going to expect Hydro Cannon. Skarmory will be standard. Togekiss is really fun. I really wanted to run Togekiss in my remote Twilight Cup, but I was unable to get one under 1500, and hers is $14.99, so that's pretty awesome. I assume that it's carrying either Charm or Air Slash with a Flying type charge attack and Ancient Power. She also has Probopass and Venusaur, and you can always expect that Venusaur to be carrying Frenzy Plant. Whether or not it has Razor Leaf or Vine Whip, you will just have to find out. Let's see how things go against Dark Ninja Shark. So to open this round, I open Medicham and she opens Probopass. Obviously an excellent lead for me. She's going to get a little bit of energy in and then switch into her shiny Swampert. I fire off this Power Up Punch here to get some energy ramping up. She decides not to shield. In comes the Hydro Cannon. I am going to shield this Hydro Cannon attack and then fire off another Power Up Punch. So we end up taking down that Swampert, and she is going to decide to bring in her Venusaur. Venusaur is a good counter for Medicham. You just have to watch out for those Ice Punches. She's actually going to fire off a Frenzy Plant against Skarmory and then switch back into Probopass. So I'm switch locked as well. I'm going to fire off this Flash Cannon to try to bust through this wall, and she decides to block it, which is very smart. At this point, Skarmory's a bit of a liability. I'm going to let it fall here because I know I have Ice Beam coverage and I have Ice Punch coverage for Venusaur with my 2 remaining Pokemon. I'm going to bring in Azumarill here, and she's going to fire off the Rock Slide. I think Thunderbolt's probably key there, especially if you're just going Hail Mary, if you're going for the Hail Mary moves. In comes the Thunderbolt here, and it does excellent damage against Azumarill. I'm going to fire off this Ice Beam here, and she lets it through. In comes Venusaur, but I get to the last second Ice Beam. I'm going to fire it off against Venusaur and then switch quickly into Medicham. She's out of shields, and I burn my last shield to protect against this Frenzy Plant. I'm going to try to wrap up this match with an Ice Punch and then a few more counters on Probopass. And that's exactly what we do. GG's Dark Ninja Shark. Going into my last opponent. So Antonir is going to run Lantern, Umbreon, Venusaur, Skarmory, Medicham, and Azumarill. We've seen a lot of Lantern, Venusaur, Skarmory, Medicham, and Azumarill in this tournament. We haven't seen that many Umbreon. I love Umbreon because it's so tanky. It does carry Last Resort if you have the Community Day move, and that helps you get a lot of neutral damage in against your opponent. The standard fast move is Snarl, and most carry Foul Play as well. So Anton beat me in the Nightmare Cup, and I am still wanting my revenge. So let's see how this game goes. I'm going to open Medicham. Anton decides to open Azumarill. So not a good matchup for me. I'm going to make the immediate switch. Again, not having an Azumarill counter is coming back to haunt me. He decides to bring in his Lantern, so he correctly predicted that I would bring Azumarill. I'm going to fire off the Ice Beam trying to get a shield bait, but it does not work. I'm going to shield this Thunderbolt though because I want to keep my Azumarill alive. A few more bubbles, and I'm going to go here for the Play Rough. Play Rough does good damage against this Lantern, and I know this Thunderbolt is going to wreck. Azumarill barely survives, and I'm trying to get to another charge move, and we do. We get off one more Play Rough here and take down that Lantern. So he has 2 shields and he's conserving them. He does bring in his Azumarill to take down the rest of my Azumarill, but not before I fire off a last second Play Rough. He decides to let that through. I try to make the quick switch, and he's going to burn his energy on Azumarill here. I think that was a mistake. He should have held on to that. In comes Skarmory. I'm going to try a few Air Slashes here. I know with a weakened Azumarill, I can probably win. However, he is carrying 2 shields, so I need to be mindful of that. I fire off a Sky Attack here, trying to get this excellent as well as I can, and he decides to shield. I'm going to let this Ice Beam through and try to get to one more Sky Attack to take that final shield. And we do, so I'm going to fire off a few more Air Slashes here, and we get to a last second Sky Attack. I probably should have under-tapped there. He's going to fire off a charge move. I'm expecting Play Rough, but it actually is Ice Beam. So we're able to counter down that Azumarill. He actually swaps out at the last second to keep it for a sacrificial swap, and then in comes Umbreon. Now, even though Umbreon is a Dark type, and you would think that it would do well against Medicham because Medicham is part Psychic, it also is fighting, so it does take neutral damage from the Dark type attacks. One more Power Up Punch, and we're able to take down Umbreon, and then one more whack, and Azumarill goes down as well. Going into round 2, we both open Medicham. So I'm going to make a fast switch into Azumarill, fire off a bubble here, and in comes Lantern. We recognize this from earlier, this Azumarill Lantern matchup, and I'm going to try to play it a little bit differently. I fire off the Play Rough first, and he does not shield. I decide to shield against this Thunderbolt, and I'm going to try to get to another charge move here. which is play rough. He decides to block it that time. So I have a choice here, either let Azumarill go and I ramp up some energy with Medicham, or I try to stay in and see how it plays out. So I actually switch into Medicham at the last second. He goes into his Azumarill. So this is not favorable for me yet again. I'm going to fire off this Power Up Punch, and because I'm switch locked, this is essentially a kamikaze effort to do as much chip damage as I possibly can. He fires off a Play Rough. I was not expecting it because all I've seen is Ice Beam. I thought he had a Hydro Pump, but he actually gets me with the Play Rough there. I'm going to bring in Skarmory here. So it is 2 against 3, 1 shield each. He's going to fire off Ice Beam here, and I release the Sky Attack. I think if I would have gotten Excellent, I might have been able to take him down there. That Air type animation is just so tough. I'm going to shield that Ice Beam. In comes his Lantern. Lantern's already got a Thunderbolt loaded, so this is bad news bears for Skarmory. I'm going to go down, and in comes Azumarill, and I'm already very weakened, and a few more Charge Beams take me down. This time I open Bronzong. He opens Umbreon. So this is definitely a bad matchup for me. I switch into Medicham, and here we are again, switch locked against Azumarill. There's not much I can do except fire off these Power Punches and try to get some chip damage in. I am not going to shield this attack here. I'm going to let Medicham fall. He goes for the Ice Beam because he is comfortable and he wants to get the shield, but I'm not going to give it to him. We've worked this Azumarill down to about quarter health, and I'm going to switch in my Azumarill and absorb this Ice Beam. He's going to switch in his Lantern though, so we've seen this matchup as well. I'm going to try to go for the Play Rough, but he gets off his Thunderbolt first. I do decide to shield that, and I'm going to fire up this Play Rough here to see if he shields. And he does not. Lantern is extremely tanky and a lot of fun. As you can tell, we saw a Water Gun Lantern earlier, and now we're facing off against a Charge Beam Lantern. So those Thunderbolts are going to fly a lot faster with the Azumarill versus Lantern. The Water Gun matchup is easier because it doesn't charge quite as fast. I'm going to try to time this Thunderbolt here, and we don't quite get there. So I lose Azumarill with Charge Energy, pretty frustrated about that, but that's how the game goes sometimes. Gonna bring in Bronzong here, fire off a few Confusions, and unless this is Hydro Pump, I'm in good shape. Thunderbolt hits, and it's not that big of a deal, and I've got energy loaded. So in comes Umbreon. This was our first matchup. I'm gonna fire off this Psyshock and try to make the fast switch into Medicham. I have a Power Up Punch ready, and I'm gonna try to land this, and he has a shield. So in comes Azumarill. It's very weak. I'm going to fire off one more Power Punch. This match came really, really close. I just know that Bronzong is really going to struggle against Umbreon, and that's how we end up. He's got enough Charge Energy this time, and one foul play will do the trick. GG's, Anton. So as I alluded to before, we have some very exciting news. Tampa has its first ace trainer. Congratulations to Lyndon Ryu. He has really been an integral part of our PvP community, organizing tournaments, helping to mentor folks who just want to get started and are interested in learning. He's a fierce competitor, takes every match really seriously, and it's just been a pleasure to practice against him, to play against him, to be around him as he really has shepherded this entire PvP movement in Tampa, and I can think of nobody more deserving than Lyndon to get this accolade. This is great. This is a great way to end Season 1. I had a lot of fun, and I hope you've enjoyed these videos. I'm going to continue to make a few over the month of September, especially featuring an interview series with our top 16 players, Lyndon included. So stay tuned for that, and I will be back with more battle videos before you know it. See you next time.